Welcome back, everyone, to the Retro Chat podcast. Andy here. Joining me is my guest at this time. He is the man who lives and breathes socks. He wears them. I think he makes love to them. I do not know. It's the MC with socks himself, Mr. Dan Barnsdall. Dan, how you doing, good sir?
I'm good, sir. And a couple of things straight away. First of all, I think you might have just given away your secret teenage pleasure moments with you and your socks there. Something I can happily say I've never done. Secondly, are you paying royalties to Saved by the Bell for the introduction of the graphics?
It's good, isn't it? It's good, isn't it?
It looks very, very Saved by the Bell. I do like it.
Yes. It is very Saved by the Bell-esque. I thought it was a bit different than having the robot just kind of coming in and going Retro Chat podcast, and it fits with hashtag back in time.
To be honest, I like both. I thought the old one was good. I like the new one. I must admit, I prefer the old music, if I'm being honest.
So the old music. Let's just put this out there. We have two different themes. Thanks for watching. So on the YouTube, because I can't use copyrighted material on YouTube for obvious reasons, I can't use Back in Time. However, on the podcast version, Back in Time is our main song.
Listen, my friend, I always listen via podcast. I'm not much of a YouTube person. I haven't even got a YouTube channel myself. But you can follow me on everyone else at the MC with Socks.
It was coming. In fact, if you want to contact me, you can do by looking at all of the social medias that are now on the screen down the bottom. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch at Retro Chat Podcast. You can tweet me at Retro Chat Pod, and you can visit the YouTube channel just like you're doing right now at Retro Chat Podcast UK. But before we get into what we're doing, Mr. DB, because whereas we normally go hashtag back in time, we're not. We're going hashtag talking about the present, which is very different because we are going to be previewing AEW's Full Gear, which goes down live on pay-per-view on Saturday, November the 13th. So we're going to be talking about that. What have you been up to?
I was going to say, if you're going to be encouraging your great listeners to use hashtag talking about the present on Twitter, that's going to use a lot of their characters up. They're not going to say much about it, are they?
No, we're not. But we're also not going back in time. Unless you're listening to this the week after or the day after Full Gear, then it's back in time because it's happened previously, which means it's in the past, which means the hashtag would work. Yeah, anyway.
Well, what have I been up to was your question, I believe.
I got lost. I don't know.
Loads of stuff. The COVID world, or the post-COVID world, or post-lockdown world, maybe it's that way of putting it. It's been pretty good, actually, from the point of view of my side gig of wrestling. I've been emceeing, managing, refereeing. Probably the busiest I've been. God, obviously since COVID, but even before COVID, I don't think I've been this busy. I'm booked every weekend without trying to sound cocky. Very lucky. I'm doing at least one show a weekend. Last weekend I did 3 shows in 3 days.
Cool.
It's hard work, but it's a lot of fun. I don't know when this is obviously going to be released. I'm assuming it's going to be released before Saturday because obviously Full Gear is this Saturday, which is what we're going to be talking about. But this Saturday, if you are in the Crawley area, I'm at the K2 for Kapow and SWF Wrestling. Come and check me out.
The big combined, the two companies coming together with Quality Wrestling as well now, from what I can see.
Quality Wrestling kind of works with them as the Quality Wrestling Academy down in Portsmouth is a training academy for wrestlers. If you're a young wrestler or wannabe wrestler, get down there and see Raj and Rish, the two owners, and they will give you some great training. Funny enough, I've got messaged by a young lady the other day who's a fan of wrestling. So I see her a lot of shows. She said, "Where can I train?" I pointed in the direction of our Quality Wrestling Academy. They are brilliant. Yeah,
Rishi's fantastic. Rishi Ghosh is an absolute legend, and the hard haircut, the hard man haircut.
I am modelling myself currently, the hard man haircut.
I'm modelling the soft man haircut.
Yeah, now I do recall, my friend, I know we're getting off topic straight away, but I do recall you having a shaved head at one point.
Yeah.
It suited you, actually. I thought it suited you.
No. I had the shaved head and the goatee. Do you remember that?
Yes. I vaguely remember the goatee, but I do remember the shaved head, yes.
Yeah, I had it all at the same time because the hairdressers got it wrong. And they went. The reason for the shaved head is because they literally cut my hair too short. And by that point, it was like, well, you need to carry on now, don't you? So they did the lot. But with this fat face and with a shaved head and with a goatee, I look like a Mexican convict. Didn't really work. We'll never do it again.
Fair. But now currently you look like that bloke from Superbad.
Thanks. Yeah, that's not following me around over the last few years, is it?
That's an old one. That's
an old one.
That's for you people who like followed Andy for a number of years, because Andy's old as well. He's gone past 40.
Who, me?
Oh.
Or the bloke from Superbad?
No, you're old, my friend. You're over 40 now. Last time I spoke to you, you were 39. You were now 40. Last time we did one of these, sorry.
Yeah, I'm 40 in 2 months. Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome to the club. I'm a bit older than that, but that's
you're 50 and 3 months. So I need to ask you a question, because the last time we spoke, you were doing a Tuesday night weekly show for UPW called Fix. I haven't seen one recently. What is it? Has it finished? Has it stopped? Is it?
No, nothing hidden by this at all. Fix is still there. We'll try and bring it back in some form. We were royally screwed by the software. Company called Be Live, which is what we were using, which actually, to be fair, on paper looks great what it provides you. We got fed up of being halfway through an interview or a show and having the stream just cut out on me.
Right.
Or at one point, I was under the impression I was live. I did a whole interview and the audience were just looking at a graphic that was up on the screen. So I threw my toys out the pram and complained, and not to UPW, but to Be Live, and didn't really get anywhere with it. So we've cancelled our subscription to it. So we're looking at it currently, and there will be something. We haven't quite worked out how it's going to work yet, and equally, it's one of these difficult things with an independent wrestling company. Is there a demand for it? And you've got to have demand, but you've also got to have content. And it's keeping that content interesting and relevant that people want to watch when your shows are 6 times a year.
Yeah.
It's a lot to fill. So that was the other challenge. And we had some ideas, and I came up with some ideas. It wasn't my baby. It was just something I was asked to host. And I threw some ideas out about stuff we could do, and we were going to start doing them. And but the challenge is finding content and also making sure there's demand for it. I think there was demand. The content was there, but it took a lot of work. So it was a case of as we started putting the work in, then we started having issues with the software. And it's like, do you know what? Let's just rest it for a bit and see if there are other solutions. And that's down to UPW. I'm not involved with that. Again, just to be 100% clear, because people seem to think I'm nothing to do with UPW management. I'm friends with a lot of them. I work for them, obviously. I'm very happy to work for them. And I will do any kind of social media stuff they need. But no, it is down to them to kind of organise.
I think your best one was Carl Atlas and Jake McCluskey in the run-up to the title match. I mean, that was
the first one. And
that was the first one.
We have
but it
as well. So
when you talk about content and you talk about making it relevant and linking it, that to me was the epitome of when it was done. No knock on to anybody else that you had on, but there was a story there was pure emotion there was a history between Carl and Jake, and we both know that Jake is one of the most underrated performers in the UK at the moment, and same with Carl. We've both known Carl for a number of years, so to put them together and give them a platform where they really kind of shined, that to me was, and then to have a facilitator like yourself who kind of knows the business and knows Carl and knows Jake, you could bring that different aspect to it. That to me was your best one, and that was it. That full credit to you for putting that one out. That was tremendous.
Interestingly enough, and again, I won't go too much into the details. It's not my place, but that was one I felt I really enjoyed doing it. We had some technical issues. Thank you, Be Live. But from point of view of interaction and viewers and coverage, that wasn't our most popular show.
Really?
Then you talk about demand.
Yeah.
I 100% would agree that would have been probably our most popular show. It was also our first show as well.
Yeah.
And it was well advertised. You think it might be something that would be done. We get those numbers.
Yeah.
It was actually our Mark Fry show that actually got the most hits. So it just goes to show you never know kind of what it is, and you know this. You're a content provider yourself. You're putting stuff out there, whether it's YouTube, podcasts, or videos, whatever. You never know what's going to get traction. For example, obviously, we last show we did here for Retro Chat was the Visionaries.
It was
great show. I shared that as I do all my stuff on my social media, and I was shocked at the number of interactions I got on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just over the fact we post about his podcast, and I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, but shocked in comparison to other ones we've done. I've got less traction. You can just never tell what's going to hit with people.
You really don't, and it's also the time of the year. So let's get that into some context. Visionaries is the second highest rated show listenership audio feed. The highest was Mask, Mobile Armored Strike Command, which I did with Lee a couple of weeks ago. But second to that was you. Now, third after that is literally 2 days old by the time we record this, and that's Survivor Series 1997, which I did on my own.
I've listened to that as well. Yeah.
You know, so it really does. It depends on the time. It depends on the year. It depends on the content. It depends what your industry, what your market is after. But look at YouTube. Visionaries isn't the highest. It's the third. I think it's in the top 5, but it's not the highest one. The highest one we've got is a press pass with The Inspiration, which is 1,100 viewers. And
so you can never and it's got to be something to do. Again, this is probably not what people are tuning in to listen for, but
no.
But for me and you, who've both been doing this in different forms and together for a number of years, I'm not an expert on this, but it's all down, I think, to like algorithms and how you hit certain hashtags, B kind of hot points as they might be called, or stuff that's relevant at the time. I find it interesting and
equally
frustrating because there's certain things you want to get out there, you can't, and things you think, it goes crazy. You never know.
It's really weird because, you know, back in the day when we did TWS and when I did TSC and when I did MOS with Lee and Lawrence and the rest of them, putting audio content out was a damn sight easier than what we have to do now. You know, putting video content out and coming up with a unique way of doing the video content, and considering like the intros and what the background is going to look like and how you're going to do it, and then utilizing software like StreamYard and or BeLive in your case. It's really difficult. And then thinking about that damn algorithm for YouTube as well. So, and then, you know, I still say my bread and butter is still the audio feed. You know, that's what I'm comfortable with.
Listen, I'm happy. I mean, I'm 42, nearly 43, I suppose, and my content that I enjoy or take in is predominantly podcasts. From the point of view, I watch YouTube videos, but I don't go out my way to go, I must watch this weekly YouTube video. I will, but I do listen to podcasts daily. I've always got a podcast on the background of some form or fashion. And that's how I devour it. But equally, you want to look at a different generation. My son, who's just about turned 17, he doesn't touch podcasts, but he does touch YouTube, and he does touch TikTok and Snapchat, and that from the point of view. So it all depends on your demographic of where you want to go to.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing I've learned over these last 10 to 12 years of actually being involved in kind of broadcasting in some form or fashion is it does depend on what your demographic is you're looking to hit. So for sake of argument, you've got your your 4 icons down there at the bottom 5, you could YouTube of where your social media are. But there's no TikTok on there, is there? There's no Snapchat. And that means I would suggest you're missing out on a demographic, which probably is not your tailored for it, because you're retro. But you're not hitting the teenagers and younger kind of demographic. But
then it also comes, and again, we're going way off target, but it's something that I think is quite relevant in today's market. It's where do you stop in terms of delivering the content? You know, I mean, I pride myself on, same with Retro Chat, we provide at least one audio and video content per week. At least one.
Which is a lot to kind of manage. When we were doing TWS, just getting one weekly podcast out that was fresh, relevant, and in good condition, it is a challenge each and every week. I find it a challenge. I like to think I've challenged myself to get my own social media game, so to speak, up a little bit from the point of view of my at the MC with socks, side of it. And so I make sure I post in the morning, in the afternoon, a video, a post, or a picture of some kind, just of something, and trying to keep it funny, trying to keep it a bit different. But it is hard, and it's a grind, and sometimes you think, why? You know what I mean? Why?
You do, but we do it for the fun, and that's why you and I have always done it. And you know, you do it for bookings as well. I do it for free stuff. Doesn't happen, but there you go.
Hang on, whoa. We're not getting paid for this.
No, mate, we haven't got paid. We haven't got paid in 12 years, buddy. We're not about to start now.
Generally, people used to say to me, when especially someone actually asked me this past weekend, there was like a show about TWS. They came up to me and said, "How much do you guys get paid for doing that?" And I don't know what this perception is that people think that there is money in podcasting, unless you are a name in or outside of wrestling.
If you can get to a certain level of traction, so if you can get something like, I think it's 20,000 downloads per episode, at that point, you can start to monetize it and start getting something in. But it's all about now Patreon. It's all about having a Patreon and basically doing it as a full-time business. And I don't want that, because this to me is a bit of fun. This is why I do it. It's fun. I get to chat with you. I get to chat with Lee, Lawrence, Chris, anybody else who we bring on the show. Get to talk about topics, and that's kind of why I do it, and that's why it's fun. But
I think if you go on the line of Patreon, you then put the pressure on yourself. There's even more pressure because you've got to deliver a certain amount or certain quantity or quality. It's one of the reasons why I always said from day one I would never do a Patreon for TWS when we were doing it. And then people saying, "Oh, do that," and no, because I don't want that pressure of having to take money off people for something which I'm not happy with the quality of, potentially.
But then, like you said, we found it difficult to put a weekly show out on some occasions, and the amount of personnel we went through in terms of the 12 years, and in terms of running it out, myself, Steve, Toby, the brothers, Lizzie, you name it, Sam, we went through so many different members of personnel until we got, you got a consistent structure with the two teams. I can't.
Another very quick story. We will talk about Full Gear.
We will.
Another quick story. I was at a show a couple of weeks ago, and there was a YouTuber there who had been helping do some advertising for the show. It was a WrestleForce show. Give a little plug to WrestleForce UK. Great show. And he was there, and he was doing a bit of a spot there, which is, me and you have done that. We've been there promoting our podcast at the time. He was promoting his YouTube channel. Absolutely fine. So we're there chatting to him, and he goes, and he said, I've just had, I forget who he said he had on there. He had someone on there he had Magnus on, which
Nick
Nicole which you've had on fairly recently.
Yeah.
And he had someone else on who I can't remember who it was. It was someone we had interviewed back in the day. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember chatting to them, blah, blah, blah. And we were like swapping stories and that kind of side. And he said, oh yeah, he said, how much do they charge you for it? And I'm like, nothing. I said that's the biggest change I've noticed, that if we're talking to people like yourself and talking to other people who are still in the business doing podcasting, it's the fact that we were lucky. I think we came at the right time with TWS, and I'm sure Lee will tell you the same thing from an MOS point of view as well. We never had to charge for interviews. No. We never had to pay anything. I'll give a caveat. We did pay for one. I'll explain that more a bit later on. But we all our interviews came free because you were offering free advertising in the main to them. They wanted to get something across. Now this guy, I won't give you the figures, but this guy was telling me the amount of money he paid for one of these interviews, and I was like, it's not worth it.
So I'll give you before you touch on your story, I will give one a recently. So there was a former WWE personality who recently appeared on Dark Side of the Ring.
Right, yeah.
So I approached that person, I'm not going to say male or female. I approached that person and said, would you like to come on and talk about that episode?
And promote it.
And your career and the knock-on effect of said episode, because it was the plane ride from hell episode. So you can work out who was in that. They went, yeah, brilliant, absolutely. £500.
Yeah, okay. That was the figure that was banned around. I wasn't going to say the figure, but that was the figure that was banned around for me. Yeah.
And I just went, actually, I interviewed you before about 5 years ago, and you didn't charge me. So no, I'm a non-profit. I do this promotion for you and for the audience. I'm not paying it. And I never got anything back, and that was fine. But that's one of a lot of people now are charging, and that's the main difference.
And also because there are so many, just looking at the wrestling world, so many wrestling podcasts out there, whether they're YouTube or podcast or whatever. If you're not going to pay that interview, someone else probably will.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate.
And it is, and also sometimes for what you get for these interviews, it's like there's no one really out there in the wrestling world who hasn't done one of the bigger podcasts at some point, whether it's Austin's, Renee's, JR's, Jericho's, thank you, that's a good one, or one of the Busted Open shows or something like that. They've done them all, have been guests. So you're not going to be bringing anything particularly new to these interviews.
No, it's really different. It's really difficult because you try and pitch it and go, look, this is, for me, when I pitch for a guest, and you know what it's like when you pitch, I go, look, I'm not a wrestling show. I'm an entertainment show. I talk about the old school. I want to talk about the old school, but I also want to find out more about you, what you're like as an individual, what you like growing up. This will be a different type of interview. And I think that scares them in some respects because they're not used to that difference.
I think if they're, again, we're going off topic here, but it varies on the individuals. Some individuals, I'm going back in the day, we're talking a bit of the old TWS time here, when we would approach people and they were like, and especially the ones which we did face to face, whether they were on the road or they were over video or they were kind of done via, in an event or something like that.
Yeah.
Tell the ones, the stars that wanted a almost kind of standard scripted interview. When you start, do this, do that, do the other, move on. But then you also knew the ones which actually wanted something different, and the ones where I believe we were successful in getting some fun interviews, and the ones which I enjoyed the most were the ones where we were talking about pretty much anything apart from wrestling. You always kind of touch on it a bit, kind of get a bit of the kind of kids a wrestling show, but the ones like, again, without trying to name drop, we did AJ Styles. We hardly talked about wrestling. We talked about family. We talked about tattoos. We talked about his travel. It was just fun. And even after the interview, they went, that was really different. Jay Lethal was another one. Jay Lethal spent an extra 30 minutes sat around with myself, Jason, and Sybil after the interview talking about wrestling with us. Because we talked about everything else off mic, or on mic. And he said, I'll put mic on. He went, so something happened that week on Raw. He went, so what do you think happened? What do you think about this thing that happened on Raw this week? And he was just there picking our brains on it. Yeah. Because he even said, didn't want to talk about it on mic, but I wanted to talk about it and just, chat crap with you guys about it. But it was, so it does depend on the individual is what I'm trying to get at. And again, I'll go back. Let's talk about Full Gear, but just to answer the comment I made earlier, the one guy we did pay for in TWS, and I can't remember how much it was. It definitely wasn't 500 quid or $500. Was Scott Hall.
Yes.
He was doing the recovery program, and we put some money towards that and got the interview. I think, if memory serves me correctly, Toby and myself paid for that in the end.
You did, you would say. But I'm going to put it out there just before we move on to Full Gear. We've talked a lot about the TWS interviews. If you, the Retro Chat audience, would like to hear any of those, then directly contact the MC with Socks to see if he will release them for me so that I can play them as a From the Vault.
At the MC with Socks for your follows and for your comments. And if you get me to, I don't know, let's go for get me to 10,000 follows and likes, I might consider it.
Got a chance of that myself. We'll say one thing.
Without being rude to your current products, I know you are releasing some great old interviews, but again, the TWS ones are like 8 to 10 years out of date.
Yeah. You would be surprised the amount of traction they get. You really would be surprised because there's a market for them. People want to listen to them. But anyway, I've tried this and I've got to pass over to my listeners now.
Andy, if there's a market for it, there's a traction for it. I'll do you a deal. £200 per interview, mate.
How about no? Right. What I will say before we move on to Full Gear, today's episode of the Retro Chat podcast is sponsored by Pizza Napoli, coming out of Weymouth. If you want fresh Italian flame cooked in the pizza oven pizzas delivered directly to your door with some great flavors and some great textures, you need to head over to pizzanapoli.co.uk, and when you're there, say that Retro Chat sent you for your #1 in Italian pizzas right here in Weymouth.
They also deliver worldwide
for a price, and very cold squashed pizza. But there you go. Right, let's do it. Let's talk about AEW Full Gear because it goes on live on pay-per-view. You can watch it on Fite TV. You can pay for the subscription and watch it on your TV or on your laptop or on your mobile device or whatever you're watching it on. This Saturday, November the 13th, coming to you live on pay-per-view. And it's really the build-up of what I would say AEW's maybe most influential run since All Out, because they've had some cracking matches and some cracking storylines going into this, including the main event, which we'll obviously touch on in a second.
It's going to be an interesting show. I think it's a kind of show that's I want to say crept up on us, but you don't really think of Full Gear as a big show. You think of All Out, as the main one for AEW, which obviously we just had. But this show is actually setting up. We're talking 10 matches here in total, which it's a lot. It's a lot, and there's going to be some long stretch matches as well in this. But there is a lot of storylines, culminating in this. There's a lot of big feuds in this. It really is shaping up to be a big show. And interesting enough, you mentioned the main event. Just want to mention this now because it only really clicked on me when I watched Dynamite this morning myself. Is the fact that the main event for this show is actually the opening match from last year's Full Gear.
It is. Yeah.
The opening match from last year's Full Gear was Hangman Page taking on, I can't remember his name, Kenny Omega. And that was the combination of the championship elimination tournament they had. That opened the show. Now, I am 99.9% sure that closing the show on Saturday will be the AEW championship match.
It's got to be. It's got to be. And I've got a prediction on that. We'll touch on that a little bit later. I think, what you said, it doesn't feel like a big show. It kind of creeps up on you. I like that. I think if you look at the amount of shows that AEW actually put on pay-per-view, and then the theme specials that they do on Dynamite or on Rampage, like Grand Slam, it makes it more important. It makes it feel different when you get to a pay-per-view, rather than every 4 weeks you've got a show, then 2 weeks after that you've got another show, then you've got a Saudi Arabia show, then you've got... I think it's back to the old school day of making it feel that the investment that you're making in that show is a combination of those storylines.
Where AEW have been very successful, in my opinion, is on their branding of how they brand these shows. Because you're right, they are doing these. I don't know about the exact calendar details, but they are doing these pay-per-views. I think they're doing. I want to say 6 a year. About 6. That.
Yeah.
And then they have these specials, these TV specials, but they make them feel special. And all they're doing is giving them a name and maybe the odd stipulation of the match. But it makes it seem like it's not just another Dynamite this week, or it's not just another Rampage. And I think, it's very easy to compare and contrast between that and WWE for obvious reasons. But I think that's somewhere WWE could learn from in making the first Raw in every Raw every 3 weeks a different style show, and just throwing something in there. And with the focus now so much more on TV ratings than it is on pay-per-view buys, WWE's got this kind of juggling act where they've got two masters to pay. They've got the TV rights and to pay to kind of manage their expectations of the two TV companies. But they've also got Peacock, where they are pushing their pay-per-views to. So you've almost got to find what's the big better payer for them. And I'm guessing from the way WWE are pushing it, it's the TV side of it, which will make sense from point of view of their financials. But I think they could go one step further and just making like they do with NXT, or used to do with NXT, Halloween Havoc, 1 week. And it's just a branding name, but it makes it seem a bit more interesting to the public.
I agree with you completely. I mean, what's interesting is the fact that the next NXT TakeOver is no longer called TakeOver. It's NXT War Games. They dropped that TakeOver title.
Announced this week, it was on the beginning of December, will be the return of War Games, and it was classed on there as pay-per-view, but I believe that is just for outside of the US market. But my understanding is it will be a TV special, now, like Halloween Havoc was.
Yeah, what I'm concerned about with AEW, and this is before we get into this, we talked about how great they've done this year with the way they've set the shows up, and you've had Grand Slam or Beach Blast or Bash at the Beach, that type of thing. Obviously, in January, Dynamite is moving to TBS. Rampage is staying on TNT in the US. And then there's going to be some TNT specials. So I would imagine those would be like Clash of the Champions.
Well, they're calling it, they've given that a name already. Battle for the Belts, I want to say they're calling
Battle for the Belts. So Clash of the Champions type thing, isn't it, really? Just can't use that name. But is that going to water it down?
I think... we're in an interesting time within wrestling with regards to the amount of content that's out there, and whether there is the desire and the need for more content. We just talked about it with regards to, you know, podcasting and video casting. When it comes to wrestling, there is so much on demand now to watch. It used to just be the WWE Network, but now you've got New Japan World, which they're pushing a big part of the American and UK kind of commentary as well now. So you've got more of that to watch. You've got Impact with their Impact Plus. You've got AEW, which haven't got a streaming service as of yet, but they are putting out weekly content on YouTube as well. New Japan have just literally started putting out a weekly YouTube show as well.
Have they? I haven't seen that.
This week with a match with Will Ospreay in there, which is a cracking match, worth going to check out just for that. And then you've got all of this, and you're starting to see that the demand is there, but it's causing casualties. First casualty was literally 2 weeks ago, Ring of Honor. Closing down for hiatus, selling their video library.
Well, that's been debunked. That has been debunked. Yes, that has been debunked. Apparently that it is potentially available should an offer come in, but the owners are Kerry Silkin owns half of the ROH tape library and Sinclair own the other half of the tape library. We go and random talk. This is what happens when we start talking wrestling, but because we haven't talked about it legitimately for about 2 months now. What do you think of that ROH going under? Because I can't see them, as much as they're saying they're going to come back and they're going to do X, Y, and Z. I really can't see them coming back in this climate.
When you close down, or you say you're going on hiatus, without really giving a reason why, there's no been official kind of reason why, or an official return date. No. I think that is the concern, that once you're gone, and you're no longer even vaguely front of mind. Now, I do watch Ring of Honor most weeks when I can, but it's not my top priority. If I get a chance to watch it, I will watch it. And I have to say, the show is good. It's a good quality show. It's wrestling. It is good quality wrestling. But they've slipped down the pecking order, so to speak, with regards. So obviously they're below Impact now. That's all, with all due respect to Impact.
I think if you look in North America, you've got to go. It's WWE, AEW, Impact, Major League, and then possibly NWA, then possibly Ring of Honor. At that point,
you've got a friend that now. You've got a friend that now. New Japan have got their own American show as well. New Japan Strong, which is very popular. You are getting these other shows coming in. The interesting thing is with that you combine this with a large influx of Ring of Honor talent being released. That they will now be able to go out and get other jobs. We're talking decent sized names, people like Jay Lethal, we already mentioned, Brody Lee. You've got
the Briscoes.
The Briscoes, thank you. My Shane Taylor, who I think is an amazing athlete, and that guy should be, I would say, happily should be in WWE's network. But
Dalton Castle to be another one. Yes, Dalton Castle. Flip Gordon.
Yeah, and the women's point of view, that really release people like Angelina Love. You release Roxy. You release Maria as well.
Chelsea Green.
Chelsea Green. All these people are now kind of out in the marketplace, and then you combined with all the releases from WWE recently, and there's probably potentially there'll be more coming as well. The market is oversaturated, so the people who potentially will lose out through this, I believe, is the workers.
I agree.
I think AEW have got the point now where they are like, I'm not saying their doors are shut, but their roster is bloated.
The only thing I can see AEW doing, and it's something that I kind of hope they don't, because it's difficult to manage it on WWE properly, is I think with the amount of talent they've got on there now and going to the two different networks, TNT and TBS, you could legitimately now say AEW do a roster split. And then you have, the TNT Women's Champion, the TBS Women's Champion, which doesn't really make sense. But the AEW World and the Tag Team Champions stay universal. So 1 minute they're on SmackDown, 1 minute they're on Dynamite, 1 minute they're on Rampage. But if you look at the card, if you look at the headliners, the CM Punks, the Bryan Danielsons, the Adam Coles, potentially the Jay Lethals, the Christian Cages, they have enough star power to run 2 separate 2-hour shows per week.
Is there the demand for it? And is there the TV space for it?
That's the problem.
That's the question. Do we want another hour of wrestling? we've just got a new hour of Rampage, or fairly new hour with Rampage. It's a lot. And it's finding that other night. Yes, so the argument is, okay, we go Friday night, we do 2 hours. But we've already seen that when they go head-to-head with WWE on a Friday night, they lost. You know,
They did.
There's no two ways about it. AEW lost in the ratings battle. Is that important? The argument, I think, probably is yes, it is. And do we need to have another hour of wrestling? I don't know. I think someone mentioned to me the other day about, with all these releases and with Ring of Honor going, is this the opportunity for yet another new company to start up and become a mainstream? And I'm like, from the point of view of the talent that's out there, yes, you could do it. You could fill another roster happily, but do we need it? I don't think the demand's there. I don't think the desire to digest more content is there.
Yeah, but how long has it taken for someone to step up that can match the production values and the money that the WWE? Now, Tony Khan, I've got a lot of respect for Tony Khan, but I also think he's being a bit of an idiot because he is coming out and preaching too much about beating WWE in the ratings, or I've got this much money, I can do this, you haven't got as much as me, etc., etc., etc. He needs to now knuckle back and focus on that product because they're losing demographic. They are losing viewers over the last few weeks in both Dynamite and Rampage. So instead of focusing on what the WWE are doing, focus on your own products and build that up. And this open door that they've done with New Japan and with Impact, which we know has come to an end now, build that back up and really run that. You know, this is as close to another major promotion like WCW that we've ever had, I think.
So I've met Tony Khan.
Have you?
Yeah, I've actually met him just before AEW actually started up. He was at a show I was working at as a backstage, kind of coming to say hello. I think he was trying. If memory serves me correct, I get the timeline right. Memory serves me correctly. AEW was about to begin, and he was there chatting to talent and that kind of side. And I got a chance to chat to him. Really nice guy, but he's a fan. He is an absolute fan. No, I don't say that in any way derogative because he is a fan. He's also a fairly shrewd businessman.
Oh yeah,
must be. Don't let the way he dresses, the way he looks, take you down the wrong path. The guy is fairly shrewd, and he's also got a very intelligent mind, a very creative mind. But it only goes so far, and I think how are we going to get to the point where this guy is burnt out, so to speak? And if you're going to say put another show and do a brand split, the immediate reaction is, well, WWE do that. So they're just copying WWE.
Yeah.
So why do it? But I think as fans, we've got to be careful not to push into another Monday Night War or whatever kind of war, right? Because look what ultimately happened to that. Yes, we got 80 odd weeks of great TV of it. It was hard hitting. It was exciting. But then ultimately someone's got to lose. And someone did lose. And then we went into some of the worst wrestling on TV for years. I would just like all these companies just to kind of coexist and give us different wrestling so you can pick and choose what you want to watch.
Yeah, because I tell you what, at some point, you know, we've talked about the 18 releases from WWE. We've talked about the Ring of Honor releases. Now, there were some surprising names in the WWE release queue. Nia Jax dealing with a mental health issue released. Obviously, Eva Marie. I'm not really fussed about that one. But, you know, they just brought her back, spent a lot of money on her return vignettes and promos, released her. Harry Smith, you know, done nothing with Harry. Could have been a
Harry
major
Smith
player
actually had done a dark match on SmackDown the week before. The guy was due to come back. And again, I'm sure he could again return to New Japan, AEW, his former tag partners in AEW. But again, it is just the fact that they don't. I don't think these rosters are necessarily need any more influx of talent. But you're right, there were some very surprising names in there. The biggest name, I guess, sound weird. I don't want to do a lot of dealing on it, but the biggest name for me that I was shocked about was BFAB. She had just come up SmackDown, and she'd appeared on SmackDown. And
she's the one that the crowd are actually chanting, bring her back, because they're saying the stable's not the same without BFAB. I agree. I mean, I don't watch SmackDown, so I can't really, comment on her. I think what I was going to say before we move on to the actual Full Gear preview, because we've done it again, is the fact that as wrestling fans, we are very quick to jump on WWE for releasing talent when we don't do it for AEW. We're very quick to criticize AEW for hiring talent, but the minute Tony Khan has to start releasing a number of personnel, we are going to be, fans are going to be all over them like a barge pole saying,
it is interesting.
It's coming. It's coming. We've told you.
Yeah, Brian Danielson, Daniel Bryan did an interview on the MMA podcast this past week, and he talked about releases because obviously his father-in-law that does the releases from WWE. He's the one who's going to make the phone call and saying you're cut, from one of that way of putting it. AEW, even for the whole pandemic, only released 3 people, and to be clear, some of them, and we won't go into details, some of them were down to the Speaking Out campaign. So it is interesting that AEW have got this glut of a roster. And we're going to go through the card shortly. And I'm just literally sat here spitballing, thinking you've got this great card with all these names on it. But some of the bigger names that have been pushed in AEW over the last year or so aren't on this card.
Mm.
There is no Murder Hawk monster. I can't think what his name is. That's how
Lance
bad
Archer.
it is. Thank you. None of, he's not on. He's nowhere I've seen on this card. Sting is on this card, but only in a corner. So you got no Sting wrestling, which you think they've been kind of like teasing off and on. It is very, very interesting how they kind of Daniel Garcia, who they've been pushing big style over the last couple of months, nowhere to be seen, even in an opening match. It's very interesting how they AEW book their talent, warm people up, and then they disappear again.
Exactly.
Look, the opening, the buy-in, the pre-show, as some people call it, but the buy-in, as AEW call it. Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter taking on Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa, right? Last year at Full Gear, the women's championship match was Nyla Rose and Hikaru Shida. And now they're on the pre-show.
But is it just a way of getting them on the card? I mean, it's tricky. This
is the way to get them on the card, because this match, there's no storyline to it.
Let us go to a quick break. When we come back from the break, we will do the full AEW Full Gear preview. But until then, let's go to a quick break. We'll be back right after this. See you in a second. All right, welcome back to the second half of the Retro Chat. We've given you the preamble. We've talked about anything and everything that's not to do with AEW Full Gear. But now let's talk about the card itself. So as we said, AEW Full Gear tonight, Saturday night, November the 13th, live on pay-per-view and on Fite. Dan, we were talking about the buy-in match before we went to break, which is, of course, Jamie Hayter and Nyla Rose facing off against Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida. If you had to make a call on that, who's going away with that win?
This is going to be believe it or not, this actually, even though there's no storyline or no real storyline going into, there is some storyline between Jamie Hayter and Thunder Rosa. And to be fair, there's storyline between Nyla Rose and Hikaru Shida. I would always lean down towards Jamie Hayter and Nyla Rose, mainly because I'm a little bit biased. Jamie Hayter, hometown girl for myself, an actual friend of mine, a traveling partner. She brings some of the most funny and best traveling stories when you're in the car with her, let me tell you that much. Stuff I can't repeat. Absolutely great. What I will say is, this past week on Dynamite, if you haven't seen it, the 6-woman or the trios tag match, as they call it on AEW, Jamie Hayter, shone. This girl is, without a shadow of a doubt, a star in the making. She's changed her look, changed her hair. She is just her in ring. I always thought she was very capable in ring. In ring, she has just become better and better. A lot of that comes down to her time in Japan at Stardom. She has done amazing strides and changes there, but also just in her way, I know her training regime has changed to affect the way she looks and the way she actually acts in the ring. Going to be an absolute banger of a match. Worth checking out the buy-in just for that. My gut feeling is we've got 10 matches on this card, 9 on the main show, and obviously 1 currently on the buy-in. It wouldn't surprise me if another one of these matches slips into the buy-in, just purely from a time point of view. This tag match is going to be interesting. My gut feeling is, I'm going to go Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter going over. I think that just kind of keeps Hikaru Ishida and Thunder Rosa on the back step, because they're clearly keeping Thunder Rosa, I believe, to be the woman who ultimately takes the title off Britt Baker, which may kind of tip my hand a little bit to who I'm picking for the women's championship match a little bit later on. But again, on this week on Dynamite, they clearly are, the fans clearly still want to see that match between, or the rematch between Baker and Rosa. I wouldn't mind seeing it again as well for the championship this time. But I think for me, you're going to keep these two separate for the time being. And by letting maybe Rosa go into a bit of a feud with someone like Hayter or even Nyla Rose for a period of time, you kind of keep Britt Baker away from her for the time being. But yeah, myself, sir, I've rambled on a little bit there, so apologies. But yeah, I'm going for the team of Rose and Hayter. How about yourself? Any different predictions?
No, always going for Rose and Hayter. I mean, you talked about knowing Jamie back in the day. I've known Jamie for a few years as well, and done some very weird backstage interviews with her as well at UPW, but really seen the girl grow. I think she's getting a much better chance to shine now in AEW than what she did maybe in 2019, 2020 when she first went in with Jimmy Jacobs. But now this is her chance. So I'm all with you, Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter for the win. Now, that brings us on to the main card, okay? And we know, I think, what the main event is going to be, which is obviously the AEW World title. We'll touch on that in a minute. But there's a match that was announced this past Wednesday on Dynamite that I think could potentially be a show stealer. And that is tag team action between the Bastard Pac and the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, facing off against Malakai Black and Andrade El Idolo. Pac.
Say that again.
Idolo.
Idolo.
Andrade. This, I think, could be one of the underdogs of the card, because you've got Pac, you've got Cody, two phenomenal workers. You've got Malakai, who really has come into his own in AEW since debuting with them, since being released from WWE. And you've got this revitalized Andrade, who is performing better than I've seen him perform in years.
It's an interesting kind of mix of talent when you put these four together. I know they are building some kind of team between Andrade and Black, which surprisingly is working. I don't mind it, which surprises me. Pac and Rhodes, you wouldn't put the two of them together. Pac is 1/3 of Death Triangle, who the other two, the Lucha Brothers, are. We'll talk about in a minute. But Cody Rhodes has been on this unique journey, and it's one of the parts of AEW that if I'm honest, I haven't particularly enjoyed this Cody storyline. The funniest bit for me has been Arn Anderson and all these memes that have come out about Arn being armed with a gun, armed with a Glock. That kind of stuff has made me chuckle. But this whole story about, and the feeling I get is that the build for it is, will Cody turn? Will Cody turn heel? Why, as a fan in a kayfabe world, would we even understand that? And it's case, they're almost teasing the fact when he does the pedigree, he's going to turn. And I'm like, for me, I kind of see where they're trying to go, but I think this is where they've overthought it, and they're trying to book it for almost the too smart fans. I think you look at it on paper, this will be a great match. Cody always delivers on pay-per-view matches. Pac and Andrade, for those who have seen, I'm sure it's a Rampage match they had a little while ago. It was amazing. You throw Black in there, who is a great athlete, a great worker, and him and Cody have had some great matches already. I think this is just going to be a bit of a barn burner. I'd actually open the card with this. This would be my match.
I would agree.
Great reactions from the fans. So
I think that I'm with you. I'm not really enjoying the Cody Rhodes aspect at the moment, but I haven't really enjoyed Cody Rhodes for a couple of years. I think that Cody's trying to be too much of Mr. Nice Guy and appease to everybody. Whereas I think that when they teased that whole retirement angle following the Malakai Black attack, and he went away, why bring him back that quick? With Cody, I think he needs some time out. He needs to be off camera for about 6 months to a year, and just let the fans miss him. That when he does come back, you do get that organic face pop, because at the moment he's trying too hard and the fans are revolting on him.
It's interesting. There's a lot of talk, and I don't want to get too much into about the potential break between Cody and the Elite, and how the owners, or not class owners, but the people who have a stake in the company aren't necessarily on the same page. And it does feel, from a fan looking in, that there is almost like there's two kind of almost like two brands. There you go. You've got your brand split. Two brands within AEW. There's the Cody side of it, and there's the Elite side of it. And the Cody side of it is everyone who he touches and gets involved with. So you throw in your Malakai Blacks, your Andrade, your Pac to a certain extent. All of the Nightmare family are involved in it. And it's that kind of side of it don't seem to get involved with the rest of the other side, which is kind of covered by the Elite. It's very interesting. In some ways, as I say, it gives you a brand split without having a brand split, but it does make you kind of question to this side of it. The biggest issue I've got with this whole this whole match is Pac. I've worked with Pac on numerous occasions. Very majorly intense in the ring. The guy you see in the ring, he's intense. Backstage, he's a lovely guy. Really annoyed. Really annoyed. Justin Roberts gets to call him the bastard on national television, and I wasn't allowed to call him the bastard. So annoyed at that. I wanted to introduce him as the bastard. Anyway, but yeah, great. I'm really enjoyed this 3 out of the 4 storylines going into this show, or guys going into the show. I think Pac's doing his best work, and I'd actually like to see him elevated higher. I'd like to see him in that world title mix.
Yeah, I think Pac is still trying to shake off, to a degree, the Cruiserweight 205 WWE, but I think he's doing that in a completely different way. His time will come, I think. But I think Cody Rhodes has got to be the Triple H. He has to be in the main event, even if he's not in the main event. Do you know what I mean? He's not trying for the world title.
Negative towards Cody. I think it's, for me, and I was a minute ago, the storyline has been very confusing for me. But I think the guy does deliver, and he's not adverse to putting people over. You know, he can make people look like $1 million. And I think there's something to be said for that. And I think what's coloring a lot of people's mindsets, and maybe yours, is this build. It's a very confusing storyline.
Maybe. I will say this, as a worker, I've never really gelled with Cody, even from his days in WWE, but he is a super lovely chap. You know, I've met him a couple of occasions. You've met him a couple of times. He is genuinely lovely. He's a really down to earth, really nice guy. Couldn't do more for you. In fact, I remember a time we had someone at UPW who couldn't make the show due to illness, and Cody was appearing on it, and he sent him a video. I mentioned it to him. He did a video, and we sent it off to him. And that's, didn't have to do that. Full credit to him. But there's something about his in-ring work. I don't know. There's something about him, but it will be a good match. It will be a good match. So who are you going with? Pac and Rhodes or Black and Andrade?
This is a hard one. I kind of think you go Black and Andrade. I think this storyline's got to continue. Whether you then, because also they're more of a team. They've worked together, albeit in a short period of time. And if you think about it from the wrestling theorist point of view, a team, albeit a team with a short establishment, should be able to beat 2 singles guys. Especially 2 singles guys who have no kind of correlation or relation. So I'm going Black and Andrade.
I'm going to go, just because I don't want to agree with you on every single match, Pac and Cody Rhodes. But I think Black and Andrade is a good shout. But I'm going to go with Pac and Cody Rhodes. That brings us to the Falls Count Anywhere 6-man match. And one I'm really looking forward to this one. Christian Cage and Jurassic Express versus the Super Click. Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. Any chance to see Adam Cole, baby, in action, I'm all for. Mix him with Nick and Matt, or Matt and Nick, the Bucks, I'm all for as well.
It's interesting that this is the match I'm not really that bothered about.
Really?
And it's a difficult one for me, because I don't like these people who come onto these shows and badmouth people about to do it. I've not enjoyed Christian Cage's return.
What, to AEW or since
Impact,
dropping the Impact title? Right.
Both. I've just not enjoyed his return. I've been like, I'm really happy to see the guy back. Really happy to see he's healthy. But I've just found him just there's nothing. There's no new coat of paint with him or anything. It's still the same Christian. And
I want a heel
don't
turn.
think he fits in with the Jurassic Express.
No.
I don't actually get Jungle Boy. I don't get the fascination. I think he's very talented in ring, but I just think he's really bland. I do think Luchasaurus has got a great look and is very unique, and I think he should be getting more of it. Obviously, Adam Cole and the Bucks, the match is going to be fun. You throw all 6 of these guys in there. From a point of view of work rate, it is going to be a great match.
Yeah.
For me, the interesting thing is how they place this on the card, because you have this match, which is a 6-man, and you also have the street fight as well. And they are very similar style matches, albeit this is a Falls Count anywhere, and the other one's a street fight. I think you're going to have to space these out in the card. So maybe this is the match that starts.
Maybe this is the second, and then the Minnesota street fight is the mid card match. Is the main, the halfway mark. Minneapolis. What I'm looking for with Christian Cage is a heel turn. I've been saying this since All Out. When he seemed to partner up with Jurassic Express, in particular Jungle Boy, I've just been waiting for him to screw him over. So you're talking about, is Cody going to go heel in the opener? For me, is Christian going to go heel?
And I think there's an element of that. There's almost like this, and they were teasing it, I felt, at the beginning, because there was just some looks that Christian would give him that he was almost like doing this kind of mentoring gimmick, but it was almost like he didn't want to. So I do, but that seems to have dropped off in the last couple of weeks. I think what's interesting from this, and following on from this week's this week's Dynamite, and then obviously on Rampage, which will probably have aired by the time this comes out or be airing, you've got the Bobby Fish factor. Bobby Fish is now unofficially been aligned with the Elite. Down that they had that very interesting promo as they were making comments about the Undisputed Era and Red Dragon from back in the day. Kyle O'Reilly's contract is up in December.
Same with Gargano's.
Yeah, so they are. You've got to be thinking that if AEW, and again we're talking about their bloated roster, but if they can get someone else in, if they can get Kyle O'Reilly in, you can do Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, the former Red Dragon. I suppose they can probably use that name against the Bucks, which they did at Ring of Honor. They had some classic matches at Ring of Honor. Plus, then you've got 3 out of the 4 members of Undisputed Era in there. So you could almost do this tease of splitting the Adam Cole away from the Elite and having him go with the Era. There's lots of kind of potential storylines and dream matches from doing that.
Yeah.
Whether it'll happen or not, let's face it, Kyle O'Reilly may want to stay in WWE. He may want to carry on tagging with Van Waltner, whatever the weird guy's name he's tagging with currently. I don't understand that storyline. But he may be happier doing that. But I just think that was the tease. So I'm wondering, you could still do the Christian turn as well. But I think Bobby Fish will be involved in this match in some form.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they're lining it up. It's interesting, though, because Bobby Fish did an interview a couple of weeks ago, said he hasn't actually spoken to Adam Cole backstage.
Well, they did this
Dynamite. Well, they did. They did. Right. So who are you going with? Cage and the Express or the Super Click?
I kind of think because they did the Concerto shot 2 weeks ago, which again, Adam Cole, that should have put someone out for months. That traditionally is a protective move. Adam Cole wrestled on Rampage that weekend. So I think you've kind of given the Jurassic Express and Christian Cage the moment. So I'm thinking you go Adam Cole and the Super Click.
I don't think you can't give it to anyone else. I think you have to give it to them.
This
I
is
really
Adam
do.
Cole's first pay-per-view, isn't it?
Yes, first pay-per-view since All Out.
So I think did he wrestle it All Out?
No, he appeared at the end of the main event, just like Danielson.
That's right, he did. You're absolutely right. So so I would say you've got to have Adam Cole go over.
You really do.
I'm going to go with you. Could link into a Christian heel turn from that. You absolutely could.
I'm going to go with you on that. So I think Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. Now the next one is one that I'm really looking forward to, because I think since the return in August, which really gave you goosebumps when you watched that crowd react to the Chicago Sun, and now what's happening with Eddie Kingston, CM Punk, Eddie Kingston is going to be off the chart. I cannot wait for this match.
This is very much a smart wrestling fan's dream match.
Oh yeah, it's a fan's wet dream. It really is.
It's gonna be a good match. I think in ring it will deliver. Eddie Kingston had that amazing barn burner with Daniel Bryan a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite, which was amazing to watch. I think what I did like going back to that promo, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. It would have been 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
That between Punk and Kingston, I think that Kingston kind of got him, legitimately kind of said some stuff that kind of got the Punk a little bit, because if you saw the look on his face when he said that, I'll speak for the rest of the locker room, the majority of us didn't want you here. I wonder if there's an element of that. I wonder if there's an element that Punk has felt a bit of that from some of the people there. A very bloated locker room. A lot of guys who come in who are big names have dropped down the card, with people like Punk, Bryan, Adam Cole coming in. You know, that it means that people like Pac, for sake of argument, who should be a lot higher up the card, Lance Archer, not even on this pay-per-view. You know,
couldn't remember his name.
I believe he's recovering from an injury, but even so, they've dropped down the card because of these bigger in air quotes, bigger names coming in. But I think this match is really a pick 'em as well. Do you go Punk? Do you go Kingston? I think the smart money's on Punk, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kingston.
I think they're gonna swerve it. I think it'll go Kingston, especially with Mox. With Mox going into the alcohol inpatient treatment center, him and Kingston being close. That great promo that Punk did about Mox, and the words that kind of, I think, came legitimately straight out of Punk. I'm giving it to Kingston. Really am.
I'm going Punk because I think Kingston is the kind of guy they just like to beat, and I think Punk is. There's obviously that's certainly obvious. There's money in Punk in a world title picture of some kind, but I think this match doesn't really matter who wins and loses. The fans ultimately win.
They do, and I think just going back to what you said about Punk, I think Punk is the money horse. He is the golden goose for them, but I think he needs to be shown to be human and not be a clear win streak. You can't. He's 3-0 at the moment. He can't go that much continuously without losing. He needs to drop one, and that won't hurt him if it's a double disqualification, for example.
Equally, I do agree that Punk can afford. I think Punk can afford to lose. I just don't think. For me, I don't think it's the right time. I think there's a story to be told there with Punk getting his first loss after 7 years, and whether it's as bad as it sounds, I think it needs to be someone of a
higher up the card.
Caliber up the card. That sounds awful because I do like Eddie Kingston. Then Kingston.
Do you know who it should be? Danielson. Punk versus Danielson.
No, I don't think it should be. I think it should be the person who we're going to talk about next. I think it will just give him amazing heel heat. MJF.
MJF versus Darby Allin is our next contest. I mean, I'm just going to call this one straight away. As much as I love Darby Allin and I love the partnership with Sting, for me, MJF is the unsung hero, and it's going to be MJF all the way.
MJF is a guy who I think is very polarizing. He's a guy who I can legitimately say what you see in the ring is pretty much him in real life. The guy can be toxic. He is very much a polarizing figure. If he doesn't want to talk to you, he will not talk to you.
No, I know.
He's a very interesting figure. In ring, he's solid, but I enjoy it. So I enjoy his promos because they're funny. Because you kind of Jesus Christ stuff he gets away with saying. But in ring, I don't go crazy for his matches. They're solid. They're a good, solid match. But there's nothing particularly, I would say, outstandingly different about it. For me, the biggest payoff for MJF currently, and they're building it very, very slowly, is the Wardlow match, which obviously is going to happen at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think with MJF, it's not about his work rate. It's about his ability to cut a promo and get that heel heat. That is his...
A little bit of Roddy Piper. Going old
perfect.
School.
Yeah.
It reminds me of almost this generation's, and we're talking a couple of generations removed, but this generation's Piper. The way he acts, the way he speaks to the fans, the way he doesn't do anything particularly flashy in ring, but it's solid.
Yeah, agreed.
He's big with him.
Absolutely. So you're going MJF, I'm going MJF. The Minneapolis Street Fight, the Inner Circle versus the Men of the Year, Dan Lambert and Junior Dos Santos and Andre Orlovsky.
Well done, sir. Well done.
I take a bow.
Can I just, before we go into the match, can I just say I am really disappointed that Paige Van Zandt isn't doing something on this show. I know she'll be in the corner, but her promo the other week on Impact, it is amazing. That woman, if she stepped out of MMA and wants to step in the wrestling ring, she can cut a promo.
Oh yeah.
Plus, she's got a great look. She's got a wrestling look. I think she would be amazing. She's so confident on the mic. I wanted to see the Inner Circle to have a female person so she could take on in a one-on-one match. I just think it'd be brilliant. But yeah, do you know, I don't care. It's just would have been a lot of fun to kind of watch her in action. But yeah, I think this is going to be. I'm really looking forward to this match, and I don't know why. I do know why. It's Dan Lambert. The guy's brilliant.
He's an absolute god, isn't he? On the mic, he's amazing.
I think the concern from this point of view is actually the fact that the men of the year, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, don't need a manager. Ethan Page can talk. Scorpio Sky's fairly confident on the mic as well, actually. And I think, unfortunately, they've been overshadowed by Dan Lambert because of this. But they're on pay-per-view and they're tagging against Jericho. So come on, you're doing something right.
I was going to say, I think if they didn't have Lambert, they'd be forgotten. Lambert has been a godsend for them. He's given them the rub. You talk about old school mentality. You compared MJF to Roddy Piper. Lambert compared to Bobby Heenan in terms of that.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very much like that. He's a cross between Bobby Heenan and from his mannerisms as well. You can definitely tell he's old school. Even this week on Impact when he was calling out the original Rocky Johnson and just saying it's a Boston crab, not the walls of Jericho. All that kind of great stuff. But he also wants to be a cross between Bobby Heenan and a little bit of Paul Heyman.
Yes, I can see that.
Of his knowledge and that kind of side of it.
Yeah, I can see that.
This for me, it's an obvious Inner Circle going over, and it's Jericho kicking the living snot out of Lambert, probably putting him in the walls of Jericho and having him tap out.
That's what it's going to be.
I'd also what I'd like out of this is I'd like them to be able to give each of the Inner Circle time to shine. I don't want this to become too much Jericho Lambert is the story. I think you can tell some good stories and push some of the other members of the Inner Circle, like Santana is a star in the making. Just needs to. Ortiz is very good as well, but there's something about Santana and his promos and the way he comes across. I think this guy has got a singles run in him. Sammy Guevara. I can never say it. Guevara.
Sammy Guevara.
Guevara is an amazing star, and I think he needs to be highlighted in this match as well. I think you can do that within the fact this is a street fight. I think it gives ability to lots. You need the street fight aspect as well to hide American Top Team.
Yeah, you do.
Point.
I completely agree.
These guys aren't going to be doing bloody, Hurricane Ranas and all that kind of side of it.
You never know. You never know. So you're going with the Inner Circle.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Jericho tapping out Dan Lambert.
I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go for an upset. I'm going to go the Men of the Year, Dan Lambert, and the other two, America's Top Team. That I'm just because I want to be different, just because I want to be different. Now, we're over halfway of the card. We have 4 more matches left to talk about, and they've all pretty much could be main event caliber matches. Which is going to be matches. They're all title matches to a degree. So it's going to be interesting because the next one is the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament Finals. That's a mouthful, and that's against Miro and the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Miro.
Do you want to go back and edit that out?
Miro.
So Miro. Right, they're all champion. They're all got championship implications, I suppose.
Yes.
That way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah. And the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Are we going anyone else bar Danielson for this one?
So see, for me, I think this all depends. If you look at old school wrestling booking, and that doesn't always necessarily work with AEW, but it depends on who's winning the main. Because if you've got Omega coming out of it with the championship,
it's going to be Danielson.
He's a heel, so you want someone like that. Means Miro's not winning. You would have thought, which means it's Bryan Danielson. If Hangman wins it, which is where the most of the money's on, then you could go with either. And you could have someone like Miedo being fed to Hangman for his first kind of title match to kind of like make him seem, strong and have a big heel for him to defeat, because they've been pushing Miedo like crazy. And I kind of say, first of all, thumbs up for the guy, round of applause. The gimmick with being the fact that he's his god and all that kind of stuff, being the Redeemer gimmick, is amazing. I think it's such a clever change. It's so much better than that gaming.
It's better to say.
Gaming gimmick he was doing. With all due respect to Kip Sabian, who I love, this is a refreshed Miedo. Talking about his wife, which obviously is a wink to Lana or CJ Parker. Is it CJ Parker her real name?
CJ Parker, yeah.
CJ Parker.
Baywatch.
So all that kind of wink to it, I think, is just brilliant. This is going to be a hard-hitting match as well.
So is Lana going to debut on Saturday?
It's possible. That's one thing we haven't discussed, whether there'll be any debuts on this show. It is possible. I think, yes. I think, yes, she debuts if he wins. I think that's when he comes out, because he even said, "I must beat you, then I get to see my wife." Because he's been saying that, since he's lost the championship, he hasn't seen his hot wife and all that kind of side of it. So he wins, he beats Danielson, and then she comes out potentially. So yes. But I don't know. I don't think he needs it. I think almost this kind of wink, nudge. I think you can save it for down the line.
Yeah. But I think I just want to raise a point with you here, because we identified it earlier on. This is Adam Cole's first pay-per-view since joining. This is Bryan Danielson's first pay-per-view since joining.
But he's already had a world title. Wasn't a world title match, but he had a match with the world champion on Dynamite. So that's why I'm thinking you go Miedo.
He had it on Rampage. He had it on the pilot Rampage.
On Rampage,
and it was an absolute cracker of a match. It went 30 minutes, so you're going for gold. I don't know, as much as I love Bryan Danielson, I honestly don't know if him and Hangman Page would gel.
We'll talk about my thoughts on Hangman Page in a bit, but
okay.
I think because, as you quite rightly pointed out on Rampage, we had that 30-minute draw.
Yeah,
you've got an excuse to go back to Danielson and Omega or whoever the champion is when you want to. With regards to Miedo, you haven't.
Is it too soon? Okay. Is it too soon for Danielson to be in the title picture? 3 months. He's been in AEW for 3 months. Similar to what we're doing with CM Punk, though.
It makes a mockery then of the. And to be fair, this whole tournament, eliminated tournament final or eliminated tournament, makes a mockery, in my opinion, of the ranking system, because it was never explained why the people who were in it got in it.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
It was a tournament for a tournament.
Danielson only had one match, I think, before he got in it. So he's not like you can say it was the top 8 in the rankings are in it. No, because even like 10 was in it. With all due respect to 10, he's a nice guy, amazing look, but he's not up on the rankings, is he? So I think there's. I think there's an argument for that this tournament is kind of needed some more explanation to give it some more context. I just don't see them going to Bryan and Omega again yet. I don't see them going Bryan and Hangman yet. So
you're going Miedo.
Miedo.
I said Miedo. You're going Miedo. I'm going to go left field on this. I'm going to go no contest.
Ooh, on pay-per-view?
On pay-per-view. I'm going to go no contest, which could indicate what's going to happen in the main event. I don't know. So, no contest and Miedo brings us to the AEW World Tag Team titles. The Lucha Brothers defending against FTR, the AAA World Tag Team Champions. This one is going to be hard-hitting. We know no fists are needed with FTR, and we know all the Hurricanranas in the world are needed for the Lucha Brothers. So it's going to be interesting. Do they do a similar thing where FTR win the AEW tag straps and they become Kenny Omega and they start carrying the belts?
I wonder if on the night they may put the AAA tag titles on the line as well.
And it goes to the Lucha Brothers.
I don't see them taking the tag straps off the Lucha Brothers yet.
No.
It's been too soon. And the reason I say that as well is because I think if you are going Hangman winning the championship, You want that to be the only championship changing hands tonight. So I think because then you got that moment. It's that big moment. That's all the focus is on Hangman. You're making Hangman what the plan is. I believe. I believe that I think this will be a great match. These guys, even though it's a contrast of styles, I think these guys. I think FTR will be great bases for the Lucha Brothers. Equally, I think the Lucha Brothers can chain wrestle as well with FTR. So I think it's going to be a very hard hitting match. And I think this will be probably one of the wrestling matches of the show. Definitely from a tag team point of view. If you look at the other tag team matches, they're actually going to be brawls, basically. This will be the wrestling tag team match.
Yeah.
So I'm going for the Lucha Brothers to retain in some form or fashion. Bear in mind, you could see some interference from Black and Andrade because they were involved in this past week on Dynamite. Equally, that could bring Pac out again as well. So there's a lot of bells and whistles that could go along with this match depending on when it is on the card. But yeah, I think keep it simple. Keep the titles on the Lucha Brothers. FTR have already had the championships once. I'm sure they have. Sure, they are former.
Yeah, they have. They have.
So I think you don't need to do it yet. Let's give them the ability to keep the titles for a little bit longer and make that title scene. But yeah, they're a one-time AEW tag champ.
But again, remember, we only had it All Out. I think it's when the Lucha Brothers won the AEW World Tag Straps. Was it All Out against the Young Bucks? So again, it's too soon for a title drop. And the one thing that you've got to love about AEW is they don't hot potato the titles. They keep them and make them valid.
Yeah.
No, so I think it's too soon. So I'm Lucha Brothers as well. That brings me up to the one title and the one match that I love. One of the women that are in this match because I think she's amazing. The AEW Women's Championship, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD versus Conti. For me, this is Britt Baker all the way. They're not going to be dropping the title.
Do you want to try that name again?
Conti.
There you go.
Thanks. This is an easy one for me. They're not going to drop that strap off Britt Baker for a long time.
As I was saying earlier, I think the person who's taking that title off Britt Baker is Thunder Rosa. I think they're going back. They teased it a little bit this week on Dynamite. I think that's what the buy-in match is about as well. You know, with Jamie Hayter and Thunder Rosa being on the same match. I think Ty Conti's great. I think she'll have the match of her life to date because she will throw it all out there. And also we know that Britt's a great worker herself, and will support, should we say, Ty, who's a lot more greener than her. I don't see this being anything particularly long. I see this being a fairly quick match. I think it will be needed. I think we're going to need some quick matches at some point in this card because there's a lot on this card.
This is going to be a 3.5 hour, 4 hour card.
It's going to be a lot to sit and watch. It'd be great, but all the matches we talked about, I can see them all being quite long.
Yeah, and hard hitting and fan interaction and burnout. I don't see Britt Baker dropping the women's title until the first Rampage on TNT, or the first Clash of Champions.
It's interesting that we're talking about women's championship. They haven't put either the final or one of the matches for the TBS title on this. It's not even on the buy-in. No, so we haven't. We're getting Ruby Soho taking on
Chris Statlander.
Thank you, Chris Statlander. And I believe that's next week on Dynamite.
I don't mind. The thing is, I don't mind that. I think
you don't. But you would think they might have put it on this card as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you think about the TBS Women's title, but I think bringing a second Women's Championship, singles Women's Championship, is a mistake. I don't think the depth of the women's roster is there yet to have two women titles.
I agree. I think with the fact that the AEW's women's division is probably I want to say weakest, but it's the least amount of depth in there. And I think AEW missed a trick, not with this Forbidden Door, which was open with Impact, not using more of the Impact Knockouts division.
Imagine Deonna Purrazzo versus Britt Baker.
There's loads of
Tennille Dashwood. Jordan Grace.
You've got Rosemary you could use. You've got Jordan Grace, you quite rightly said. You've got Havoc. You've got all these people that could be utilised within AEW. Just give some fresh matches if nothing else. AEW's women's division, the matches are a little bit kind of, I feel a little bit stale.
Yeah, but even in AEW, you think about Kira Hogan is now in there as well.
Well, is she? I don't think she's signed, has she?
She signed with AEW, yeah.
But again,
yeah, she's only
not. I haven't seen her on Dark or Dark Elevation the last couple of weeks. So, listen, I'm sure there's reasons. I just think, this for me could be like the cool down before the main.
I hope it is, because I think the way we've talked about the matches, by the time you get to the main event, if you don't have a cool down in there, you're going to be burnt out. And this one is going to be hard hitting. And this will be the title change. It's the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Kenny Omega, the belt collector, defending against Hangman Page, one-on-one. This is, I think, a no-brainer. I think it's a clear Hangman Page title win. They've been building this story up now for over a year. And in fact, on Dynamite this past week, when they did the contract signing, they even referenced the fact that it was the opening match at last year's Full Gear, when he said he was proud of me, but actually he was scared of me.
It's a very long-term storyline being told here. I know this has got like universal praise, and I'm curious to watch the special that I think is on Friday night, I think it is, where they have like this what they call it, the Road 2 basically. They call it, where they have all there, and I'm sure they'll do some amazing sit down video packages for this match, and probably for the CM Punk Eddie Kingston match as well. I'm just not interested. I don't know what it is. I cannot get behind. Listen, I've interviewed Alan Page. He's actually a really nice guy. I had a really good laugh. It's one of those interviews you want to have. It's on TWS archive, which is hidden. But
it's not hidden. I know where it is. I just can't get it.
He's a really nice guy. But I don't see him as this main event star. And even though I think Kenny Omega is absolutely great in the ring, I actually enjoy him more as part of the Elite and that kind of heel faction like you're actually in ring, if that makes sense. And I find that I've never gone, there are some great Kenny Omega matches out there. Please don't at me at the MC with socks. But he's not someone that necessarily I get excited about watching. And I'm not that bothered about the match. I think you're absolutely right. It's a given from the way the storyline's been booked. Hangman Page has to win this. If he doesn't, I don't think there's any comeback for this. I know people say it's long-term storyline. No, pull the trigger if you're going to do it now.
You can't get any more long-term than a 12-month storyline. You know, we saw it with Sting and Hogan and WCW in '97. You can't get any more long-term than that. And I think you're right. They damaged Page by not putting the strap on him last year. He was meant to be at All Out. They didn't do that title match because of having the maternity leave. Congratulations. Now is the time. If you're going to do it, 1 year since you had the first match against Omega, it is now or never. So it's got to be Hangman Page.
Yeah, I think that's what it needs to be. You've got to go, come on, let's pull the trigger. Let's do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. And see how it goes. And it may be the fact that Page, as a champion, I will warm to him more. But at the moment, I'm not bothered. There's other people I'd rather see with that title than Page. But let's see what happens.
To be honest, I think, we talked a few minutes ago about them not hot-shotting championships. I don't think Page will have a long run if he wins it. I think he's going to be a transitional champion.
I think again, I don't know. What I will say is the crowd love him. If you look at, I'm clearly in the minority, and I'm happy to be that. That's absolutely fine because everyone's entitled to their opinion, and everyone's. That's what wrestling's so about. You're not meant to. You can like who you like. I think this cowboy, excuse my language, is cowboy shit. They're pushing. It's working. He's getting across. I don't know. Just something isn't clicking for me, and I can't really put a finger on what it is. I did enjoy the contract signing this week. I thought that was quite cleverly done. I didn't see the angle with the cameraman coming on. I completely forgot the guy's name who's managing him.
Don Callis.
Thank you, Don Callis. I didn't see that coming at all, but and that was really well done. But yeah, I think it will be interesting. It's interesting that you've also got to consider that on this card as well, Dark Order's not on here anywhere.
No, they're not. But are
So
we going to see
will they
some
be
Dark Order in
involved?
the?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Will
where I
they
was
be
going with that.
involved? And will Kenny have the? I'm sure the Elite will be out there in some form or fashion. The other thing you could look at as well with this, and again, I'm not sure it's the right thing to do. If you are going to have the Dark Order involved in this, is this the time when you debut Bray?
We were going to say, is anyone going to debut? I've heard nothing about Wyndham Rotunda signing, but hey, what a day to do it.
And you have them cost Paige, and then Paige spirals off into a feud with the Dark Order and Bray. I don't like it. I think my immediate reaction is go down the line of give him the championship, but it's just interesting the fact that Bray's gone very quiet. They always talk about him doing some Hollywood stuff, apparently.
Yeah, there is. The problem with that is, I think if you don't give him the strap at Full Gear, even with Bray turning, the crowd are just going to poo all over it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think with Bray arriving, I think the crowd will be behind him anyway. I think you can't. It's a hard guy to debut as a heel.
I think it's like that Royal Rumble, isn't it? When do you remember? I can't remember what it was, but I think it was Daniel Bryan who was rumored to be returning.
No, and Bryan was in the championship match, if memory serves me correctly, and he lost. And then they wanted to. Everyone thought, well, Bryan's going to come out of 30. WWE haven't said that he was going to be in the Rumble, but everyone wanted. And then it was Rey Mysterio, who unfortunately I think made his return actually from injury.
Yeah, he did. He did
at that show, and then got booed royally for it.
But that would be. But that would be type of the heat you would get if they did that, and it's not right.
I think you've got to give Paige the championship,
and
let them run and see how it goes. And for me, that's why you have Miedo going against him next as that number one contender, because he's a strong heel, who Paige can beat. So I think it's going to be interesting. But again, for me, without stating the obvious, this is the only championship I can see changing hands. I think you want to cement, and you want that moment. You want that moment of the crowd going crazy. A battered Paige holding the championship up. That boyhood dream kind of moment.
Do you know what I really want to see in this? And you might kind of go, you're nuts. I want to see on the show the old school promo by both of them. Like WrestleMania 6, we had Hogan Warrior, and they were in the locker room or in the set, and they were doing the promos and all that type of thing to hype it. I just want that again, just something to give that build up in the night, leading in.
I don't think you need much more now. I think with the Road 2, they're going to be released, because they've got over a year's worth of footage for the year. More than that, because you think they've got their tag team as well, and they were teaming as well before that. You've got all that kind of footage. You've got, I think this will have that big fight feel.
Bear in mind, though, we've got a Rampage 24 hours before Full Gear, so who knows what's going to happen on Rampage?
Yeah, I don't see them doing much on Rampage. I don't think they need to. A lot of these storylines now are at the point where we can just pull the trigger. This Rampage feels a little bit like it's not necessary.
It's a Sunday night heat.
Yeah, it is, to be fair. I say that with all due respect to the people who are on it, because I know we've got a lumberjack match, haven't we?
Yes.
Between Orange Cassidy and Matt Hardy. That feud that never seems to end. Did you know? Fun fact, right? Last year at Full Gear, right? Sorry, I'm getting it wrong. I was going to say they were in a match together. They weren't. Matt Hardy actually took on Sammy Guevara.
See, I wish I'd known you were going to do that at that point, because I could have done a Matt Fact graphic and we could have put it up on screen. That would have been. Anyway, Dan, that's it for this real long preview of AEW Full Gear, where we've talked about pretty much anything and everything to do with the wrestling world. What are you watching it? Are you going to be watching it live? Are you catching up with it?
So Saturday night, I will be again working for Kapow and SWF Wrestling at the K2 in Crawley. So if you're free, come on down there. Tickets are still available. Not many, but there are some tickets available. And I've then actually got to go to a divorce party afterwards. So I'm not too sure what time I'm even going to get back from that. So I will probably watch it Sunday at some point. I think me and the wife are going to sit and watch it Sunday. I am going to watch it. Yes, the problem is it's going to be a long card. There's no two ways about it, ladies and gents. It's going to be at least 4 hours, I'd say.
I was going to suggest we did an AEW Full Gear recap session next week, but I don't know if I've got 4 hours to spare.
That's the problem. I mean, if you want to do it, yeah, I'll be up for having a chat about it. But yeah, I think it's going to be a long show. I'm excited to watch it. I say, apart from really the main, it sounds bad to say the main. I'm curious to see what happens with the main, but I'm not excited for it. And that Falls Count Anywhere match, I'm really excited for the match. I think it's going to be some great matches, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I do wonder. I feel sorry again. Going back to the main, I feel sorry for the guys in the main because they've got a lot to follow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, if you want to keep in contact with us and let us know what you think of AEW Full Gear, please do contact Dan at the MC with Socks across all social media. You can, of course, tweet myself at Retro Chat Pod or join us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch at Retro Chat Podcast. We're going to be watching it. Dan's going to be watching it. I'm going to be watching it. Let us know what you think. But for now, Dan,
just before we go, I did on social media some polls about who's watching it and who's not. I asked on my social media just for a rough idea of polls who would be watching it. Very interesting, actually, that on Facebook, only 50% of the people said they will be watching it.
Wow.
Which I'm very surprised at. Whereas on Instagram, because they did one on Instagram as well, 100% of the people said they'll be watching it. Now, I make of that what you will, but from a point of view of my socials, which is again at the MC with Socks, the rough poll said that 100% on Instagram and only 50% on Facebook.
Interesting. Again, talk about your target market. Let's find out how the pay-per-view buys and the viewership is for AEW Full Gear. Dan, as always, been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you for joining me for this in-depth AEW Full Gear preview. I would say we'd do the same for Survivor Series, but I don't care, so we won't.
See, I'm disappointed with Survivor Series. I love Survivor Series. I love the concept. I always, and even now, I agree it's not the same, but I'm still excited for Survivor Series. I'm meant to be doing another podcast to preview it as well. I'm quite excited to do it. So yeah, I think it's going to be. I just like Survivor Series. For me, it's the number 2 show of the year.
I think it's lost its appeal. Maybe that I do not understand why you just announced the men's and women's Survivor Series teams on Twitter, and I just don't get that.
Got to push those socials, Andy. Got to push those socials.
You really do. But I'm going to push my socials now by saying so long, everybody. Dan, thank you as always, and we will be back with more Retro Chat goodness right here at Retro Chat Podcast. And remember, just keep the hashtag in mind and go back in time. See you very soon.